Shalom, shalom. It's a delight here to be at Valley Beit Midrash with Yossi Klein Halevi, who's a senior fellow at the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem. He's co-host together with Donniel Hartman, who's been here at VBM, I think twice, of the Hartman Institute's podcast, For Heaven's Sake, the #1 Jewish podcast in the English-speaking world. Halevi's 213 book, Like Dreamers, won the Jewish Book Council's Everett Book of the Year award. His latest book, Letters to My Palestinian Neighbor, is a New York Times bestseller and has appeared in a dozen languages. He's currently writing a book about the meaning of Jewish survival. He's written for leading op-ed pages in North America and is a former contributing editor to the New Republic. He's frequently quoted on Israeli, Middle Eastern, and Jewish affairs in leading media around the world, and is one of the best-known lecturers on Israeli issues in the North American Jewish community and on North American campuses. He co-directs the Hartman Institute's Muslim Leadership Initiative, MLI, which teaches emerging young Muslim leaders in North America about Judaism, Jewish identity in Israel. Over 150 Muslim leaders have participated in the unique program. Born in Brooklyn, he received his BA in Jewish Studies from Brooklyn College and his MS in Journalism from Northwestern University. He moved to Israel in 1982 and lives in Jerusalem with his wife, Sarah, an astrologer, and they have 3 children. Thank you for taking the time to talk.
Great to be with you, Shmuly.
So just to jump right in, I think a lot about hope. I think a lot about despair. That's one of the themes in my personal life and communal life I think about. And there's a lot to lead us towards a path of despair right now. And in America, in Israel, globally. And I wonder, have you given up hope on coexistence on many levels, on many tiers of coexistence? And I wonder how you're thinking about that right now.
Coexistence with the Muslim world?
Coexistence with the Muslim world and Jews, yes, but most broadly, and on a micro level with Palestinian neighbors.
Right. Well, there's not a simple answer. There's the emotional response, which since October 7th has, in a way, cut me off from the work that I've been doing to one extent or another for 25 years. In the late 1990s, I went on a 2-year journey into Palestinian society, into Palestinian Islam and Christianity. I wrote a book about it. It came out in 2001. So I've been doing this since then. And I'm like every Israeli, I'm so angry. I feel so hurt, so wounded. Maybe the wound is even deeper than the rage, and I don't have the emotional capacity to reach out. Yeah. I wish I did, and I hope that I'll get back to it. Yeah. But after years of reaching out, and then seeing the response first of all in Palestinian society, almost overwhelmingly supporting October 7th, while at the same time denying that October 7th happened. Mm-hmm. It didn't happen, and we're glad it happened. Mm-hmm. And then the work that I've done for many years in the North American Muslim community, and feeling betrayed by the American Muslim community, and the hope that those of us who are involved in the Muslim Leadership Initiative at Hartman had was that America would be different. Let's focus on American Muslim and Jewish relations, mm-hmm. because it's America, yeah. And things can be different here. People can let go of all their baggage, leave that where you came from, and here you're in America, and it didn't work. And what I think we failed to take into account was the deep insecurity of American Muslims as a minority. Mm-hmm. That we thought they would have the security of their being in America, but it didn't work out that way. And instead, they October 7th just brought out all of the retrograde communal instincts, collective instincts. Mm-hmm. None of the generosity, none of the outreach. People who I've been in partnership and relationship to for years, maybe you've had this experience too, of suddenly, really? I mean, isn't this an open and shut case? What's the problem here? And they weren't there.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
not all, but most.
Yeah, we at VBM were doing Muslim-Jewish dialogue for years, deep with communities, not just the imams, and really developed relationships and around theology, around politics, around our personal lives. And I gave it a few weeks after October 7th, but I reached out to the leadership that we'd worked with for years, and silence. I said, let's not even talk about it. Let's just have lunch. Let's just meet. We can't sever these ties. And no interest. And I encountered one in person because we were on this pro-democracy panel. I said, please, you didn't respond to me. We've been working for years. He said, I can't be seen as aligned with Jews. Not even be aligned with Israel. I can't be seen as aligned with Jews. And I was so hurt and enraged by it. I felt like the whole thing was fake in the past. What were we doing?
It's interesting because our program at Hartman focused on Israel. And that was the decision we made, is that we're not going to avoid the elephant in the room. We're going to focus it on Zionism, which is, the Z word in the Muslim community. And what is Zionism? Why are most Jews Zionists? What is the state of Israel? What is the Jewish people? Why are we not just a religion? And why are we, in fact, primarily a people with a religious identity and with a land? That's a very complicated set of identities for Muslims, or for that matter, Christians, to hold together. And so we decided that's where we're going to start the program. And we really thought we were preparing our people for an October 7th. And then when October 7th happened, and the whole thing fell apart. So my rethinking today, if we would have had this conversation 2 years ago, I would have said, when Jews approach Muslim-Jewish dialogue, leave all of your preconditions aside. I will sit with any Muslim who's prepared to sit with me. We've got problems, lots of problems between these two communities. And if you're willing to listen to me, I'll listen to whatever you have to say. I don't feel that way now. I cannot sit with October 7th denialists, celebrants, minimalizers, relativists. I can't do it. And I'm not saying that this is a hard and fast rule for me, but emotionally, I can't do it. So it's not only that they can't sit with Jews. I can't sit with many of my former Muslim partners.
What is it to use? So I appreciate that, and that's where I fall out too. In terms of a litmus test, what would be something that would be distasteful but would still be in for you?
So the Muslim partners that I have not lost are people who were forthright about repudiating October 7th. No ifs or buts, but you have to understand the occupation. They saw October 7th for what it was. It was a pre-enactment of the genocidal goal of radical Islamism. Had nothing to do with the occupation. And they understood that. At the same time, the problematics are the ways in which they're criticizing Israel. And I accept that. If you were unequivocal in your condemnation of Hamas, I have to swallow basically whatever you say about Israel. We can argue, but you've proven your moral credibility, and you've proven that you're a genuine partner. And so, okay, I'm still at the table.
Right. So we talked about all the ways that we feel hurt. Where do you, if at all, find some opportunity or window for hope for a pathway?
Well, so first of all, I haven't lost most of some of my Muslim partners. There are still people with whom I'm in deep spiritual relationship, because ultimately, and you know this, I'm sure, if you have a real Muslim-Jewish dialogue, it has to be a spiritual dialogue. It can't just be. It can't be nice. It can't be what my partner Imam Abdullah Antepli of Duke University calls hummus dialogue. It can't be hummus dialogue. It has to be really on a deeper level. And I've been blessed to have those relationships. And some of them have survived. At the same time, in the macro, I look at the Abraham Accords. I look at the fact, excuse me, I've been traveling. I look at the fact that this is the first war in Israel's history where none of the Arab countries that have embassies in Israel have recalled their ambassadors. And this is our most difficult war, our most morally complicated, our most brutal war. And yet, every Arab country, Egypt, Jordan, the Emirates, Morocco, they've all kept their ambassadors in Israel. First time. So they're signaling to us, we're still in the game. The Saudis are still actively interested in exploring not just a formal agreement with Israel, but normalization. We've never had that before. The agreements, the peace agreements that we have with Jordan and Egypt were essentially glorified ceasefires. There was no normalization, no people-to-people relationship. With the Emirates, it's people-to-people. With Morocco, it's people-to-people. And that's what the Saudis want into. If we can make peace with Saudi Arabia, it will be a transformative moment in the relationship, not only of Israel and the Arab world, but the Jewish people and the Muslim world. And so that's my hope. My hope today lies with the Saudis, the transformation of large parts of the Arab world, despite the war. And I think that when we look at the situation today, we have to remember the long term. Something profound is shifting in the Arab world, and we will need a government in Israel that's capable of being receptive. Right now, we do not have a government that's capable of making peace with anyone, including with their own citizens, let alone...
Well, maybe I'm reading the wrong press, but the press I mostly read tells me that the citizens are largely still, large segments of Israeli society are still behind this administration.
30%.
Yeah.
Every poll, 60 to 70% opposed.
Yeah.
If elections were held today, this government would lose overwhelmingly. Every poll has shown that since October 7th. So that also makes me an optimist.
Yeah, interesting.
But I'm an Israeli optimist, which means it's going to be really bad before it gets good.
Right. So lastly then, what's your guidance for someone like me in the field who wants to robustly defend Israel's right to defense, wants to robustly put out the truth of October 7th, wants to robustly call for the return of hostages, wants to robustly work for the security of Israel, and also wants to be a peacemaker, and also wants to build bridges at a time where things are in such binaries. What's your guidance?
So, Shmuly, people like you and me are in a very difficult and complicated place. If you're in the place where you say all the Muslims hate the Jews, and what's the point, then this is an easy moment. It just confirms everything you believed. If you're in the place where you're a Jew who essentially is betraying Israel, has turned your back on Israel, then you also have it easy. All right, I'm in alignment with the anti-Zionist Muslim community. But if you are, unfortunately, there aren't too many of us, but if you are in the place where, on the one hand, you are a vigorous and proud defender of Israel, you are upholding the integrity of the Jewish story, of Zionism, and at the same time committed to finding partners on the other side, the first thing we need is patience, deep breath. And the decision that I made on October 7th was, I'm suspending the interfaith work. This is a moment where I have to stand for Israel. I have to devote all of my work, all of my writing and speaking to defending Israel, because we are under attack in ways that we've never been before, and not only militarily, but and maybe not even primarily militarily, but our story the legitimacy of our return home is under siege.
Yeah.
And so that's the primary commitment.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, to try to hold on to whatever relationships are still sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's quiet,
Mm-hmm.
Certainly anyone who has praised October 7th in any way or rationalized October 7th is no longer a partner.
Yeah.
But I understand that there are people in the Muslim community who couldn't speak out for whatever reason or felt they couldn't speak out. And okay, I'll still be in relationship with those people. And to look within the vast Muslim world for openings. Saudi Arabia is open. I know people who are quietly going there on a regular basis to keep the Jewish-Muslim connection alive. There are Muslim communities in the United States who are not part of the mainstream anti-Zionist world. It will require a greater nuance, and more patience, sifting through, and maintaining the two core positions that define us, that define our camp, which is, on the one hand, we are Zionist, and on the other hand, we are hoping for a better relationship between Muslims and Jews. You and I were briefly talking before about the Jewish relationship with the Catholic Church and the passing of Pope Francis. And if you think about, and this also gives me hope, think about how inconceivable it was in 1945 to imagine a different kind of Jewish-Catholic relationship. Mm-hmm. And yet within 20 years, literally 20 years, 1965, was Nostra Aetate, which totally changed, or began the process of totally upending the negative Catholic theology against Judaism and the Jewish people, which wasn't just one among many theological principles. It was central to the church's identity as the new Israel replacing the old Israel. Mm-hmm. And if they were able to overcome that, then I think we have to really have hope. And I'll say something as a religious Jew. I have to believe that God wants something different between the children of Abraham. And that means that God is on the side of the peacemakers. Mm-hmm. So that also gives me hope.
Very powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shmuly.